This summer is all about watercolor flowers. There are two ways you can join in the fun. Number one, if you want the basic tutorial, you're here, yay. Follow along with the video, paint your flower with me, and subscribe so you don't miss the other flowers that are coming out every week this summer. Option two, join Painting Through the Seasons, my new course that's all about painting watercolor flowers, but you'll get extra instruction on how to sketch your flowers, how to mix your watercolors, watercolor techniques each week. It's going to be a lot of fun. So if you want that extra guidance, scan the QR code to join me today. Now let's paint some flowers. All right, to start, let's get a pencil. All you need to sketch when you're sketching a sunflower, you're thinking about the shape. And sunflowers have that large circle middle. So just loosely sketch a circle. You can see mine is really sketchy and loose, and that's just my style. You can sketch your circle however you want. Just get that basic shape down. One of the reasons I feel like a sunflower is one of the easier flowers to paint is because you do have that big circle in the center, and every petal comes off of it to fan out around the whole edge. Now, right now, I'm sketching the one that's facing forward, and so those petals are all just going out and about. The oval one that I faced is going to be side facing, and so your petals are still going to come around the oval, but they're going to also be facing towards that right hand side. And you want your petals to have movement, so have the tips facing different directions. You can have some petals leaning or draped over the center, and you can see, you can tell that the forward facing sunflower is on the left, and you can tell that the one on the right is facing towards the side just by the way we sketched that middle. It's so interesting how little you need to suggest the shape of what you are painting. I love that. Now that we have our sketch, we can start with our first layer of paint. You want to make this a little bit lighter, and just remember too that watercolor dries lighter, so it will look darker right now. And you're just getting a loose feel for the center of a sunflower. I'm not painting in every part because the white parts actually add some interest and movement just as much as the paint. So practice painting your watercolor with the paint areas, but also with some white areas in between petals or inside petals. You can see I did inside that petal there. This color mix is a mix of cadmium, yellow medium, and there might be a little bit of quinacridone burnt orange in there. But remember, this is the first layer, so leave those white spaces. If you have too many, that's okay, because later you can cover up some of the spaces you may not like on another layer. For now, just paint your petals, and you're going for movement. You want your petals to go facing in different directions, and the tips facing different directions. You can see I'm running out of some paint on my palette, so I'm just going to grab some more yellow and keep going. If you're nervous about matching your color perfectly, don't be. One of the best things about watercolor is the variations in the colors that you can get, because they're subtle and they're beautiful. You can see in the middle that things are blending already into the center, and that is part of the fun. Don't worry about your colors mixing. It's so fun and freeing and interesting just to paint loosely. Okay, so now I have some yellow ochre in there. I was wrong before. It would be the mix is cadmium, yellow medium, and yellow ochre. Now I put a bit more yellow ochre in it because I'm trying to get closer to that golden yellow sunflower. You can see if I put a mark down and it seems too dark for me, I get more water and spread it out with the water. Anytime you want your watercolor lighter, add more water. If you want it darker, add more pigment. So those petals are looking pretty good. They're going in different directions. I feel like my sunflowers are moving, swaying with the wind. Now I can start on the stems and the leaves. I'm gonna use Perylene green for the stems. It's this rich, deep green color. So pretty. And if you want it to be a little more of a spring green instead of such a deep foresty green, you can add some of the cad yellow medium into it. Again, I'm leaving white spaces. There's no right or wrong way to do this. I am starting on that edge with darker pigment so that I can grab water and let it flow up the leaf. You don't have to do it that way. You can paint it all in your color, or you can do that graded wash like I just did. If you want it darker, add more pigment into your wet areas and it will start to spread. Usually when you're looking at a flower, the point of the leaf that's touching the stem is darker most of the time, but look at your reference photos if you have them. And again, don't be too worried about this layer because it's your base layer. So anything you don't like, we're going to be adding some more layers. So right there, I did add in some cadmium yellow to get a little bit of a spring green, just to get a different color in the leaves. I like having multiple colors. I like having multiple colors when I'm painting and in my paintings. So you can choose to do that or not. It's time to add our second layer of paint now that the first layer is dry. Make sure you're patient and let it dry. You can use a little craft dryer or like a blow dryer on a low heat setting. So I have yellow ochre and I'm using that to add a deeper shadow into these petals. Don't be afraid to make your petals fold over your center like I did there. It gives it a little extra movement and interest. I'm just going to go around and add darker shadows to each of the petals. Don't forget about leaving the white spaces, which your white spaces now may have yellow in them. You can cover larger spaces if you didn't like them. But just go around and add these darker shadows. And remember, we're painting loosely here. We're not painting realistically. And so we're not as concerned with where the light is coming from and where the shadows would be. You can see that I thought about it a little bit because on the leaves, the base is darker, which usually would be the case if the sun is shining from above. But don't worry about that too much. That is part of the beauty of loose watercolor paintings. You can have lots of creative freedom. Just continue to add more water if you want your paint color lighter and more paint if you want it darker. I go back and forth all the time when I'm painting. I do like to pick my paint up off of my dry pans and then mix it on the palette. It's just how I learned to do it instead of just picking it up off of the pan. You don't have to do it that way, it's just one way. I find that I have more control over the shade and how much water and pigment are mixed together when I do it that way. And remember to keep that movement going in your petals. If you painted your petal going a certain direction on your first layer, keep it going that direction in your second layer. You can do all your petals around at once. You can do your petals and then the center of a flower and then go back to your next flower. Whatever feels most comfortable for you. I ended up doing the petals first this time because I got some good blending going on the first layer. So we'll see how the second layer looks over that. I'm going to mix up Opera Rose and some indigo and see if I can get a deep purple color. I'm looking for a purplish, more of a neutral, but definitely with a purple hint, because purple is the complementary color of yellow. And when you paint complementary colors next to each other, it helps the colors pop even more, and they just, well, they complement each other. So there I got pretty good neutral, but it's definitely hinting towards purple. So that's what I was looking for. I didn't paint a lot of it, or I didn't make a giant puddle of it, but that's okay because I know what I added. And like I said earlier, I don't mind remixing my paint again and again because it gives me subtle variations, and I like that in my paintings. So I didn't feel like I was going dark enough, so I added a bit more indigo to that mix to get a darker color going. I do like the shade though. You can see I'm still getting some blending and blooming from the petals into the middle, and I wanted that. I also left white spaces to allow the first layer to still shine through. The second layer is now dry, so I'm moving on to the third layer. You get to decide how many layers you want on your paintings. I usually have at least 3. And that's just because I like the layered look. I like sketching first. I like having various paint layers so that the painting has depth and interest in it. So again, I'm just going with an even darker shade to add a bit more shadow, or the hints of shadow in these petals. I'm using quinacridone burnt orange for this layer. I have it on its own at the moment, but I may mix it with a little of the previous colors. We'll just see. I also realized I never put a second layer on the leaves, but that's okay because I continue to do layers, so it's not a big deal. The only thing you want to watch out for is how dry your painting is. You need to make sure your layer is very dry unless you want your colors to continue to bleed together. Kind of think of this layer as like the shadows and the veins of these petals. They don't have to be perfect. You're just giving the hint of that shadow and light playing against each other. I feel like it adds more movement. You already have the movement going from the way you painted your petals, and now you can just emphasize that a bit. The trick is to not overwork your paint as well. I just went over them very lightly to soften up some areas that I noticed were a bit harsh. So on this layer, I have that purple. Now I am attempting to mix in some of that quinacridone burnt orange into my purple mix to help it harmonize with this layer. When you use the same color throughout your mixes, it will help your colors feel more like they go together even better. So again, just adding in some more shadow for the center. It is a neutral color, but it has that hint of purple coming through, which is exactly what I wanted. Back to the leaves, I have Paraline Green on there, and I think there was some green gold on that palette, so it will be slightly different than just Paraline Green on its own. I'm also adding in Cadmium Yellow Medium to get more of that springy green, but not too much because sunflowers do have fairly dark stems and leaves. So again, you're just hinting at shadows on these leaves again, and they don't have to be realistic. They don't have to be perfect. It is all about your creative interpretation of what your sunflower looks like. There's no wrong answers, which makes this so fun and freeing, and it's why I chose watercolor flowers to go through the summer with. If you want to see some more painting, I am going to be painting these flowers again on Instagram, and I'm going to do it poolside. We have a pool in our backyard, but even before we had a pool in our backyard, we were at the pool all the time, either in our neighborhood or at a local aquatic center that is close by. My kids love the pool. They are happy at the pool. And because my kids, their ages are spaced apart by 10 years from oldest to youngest. And so it was the one place where I could take all of them and they would all have fun. So the pool kind of became ingrained into our summers. And the cool thing about painting by the pool is watercolor is easy to transport. You don't need a lot of supplies to take it. I can go with this pad of paper, my palette, and even a water bottle. I have taken water bottles with me to use as my water source to rinse my brush. It's very relaxing. It doesn't have to be stressful. So there's going to be poolside painting that I'm doing. I'll probably be painting these flowers once again. So if you want to see that, come on over to Instagram. You can see here I added some green going through the petals because if you're looking at a sunflower field, you're gonna see more green behind these flowers. So I had the green travel up through the petals and then added an extra green leaf to that right hand flower. Now it's time for final details. This is our top layer. It is fun. It may seem a little scary at first because you like your painting, you don't want to mess it up, but I promise it's really fun to make these little marks. I'm using Derwent Inktense pencils. They are watercolor pencils. So really, if I didn't like the marks I make, if I don't like the marks I make, I can take a brush and put some water on there and blend them out a little bit. But I like having these extra lines in there. If you're afraid to do it with an Inktense pencil or watercolor pencil, use your regular #2 pencil, sketching pencil first. And because you can sketch really light and see if you like the look. But I'm using this Derwent pencil. I have a yellow one for the leaves and a green, or not for the leaves, a yellow one for the petals and a green one for the leaves. Just to add in the hint of those lines that you see on flower petals. And of course, we definitely see veins on leaves, so I'm adding those in. And they can be sketchy lines. I do very sketchy, loose lines. I don't try to be perfect. Just to get the hint again of those veins in the leaves and the petals. And you can even go outside the lines. It's okay. You're allowed to color outside the lines here. So I use my pencil too sometimes. After I do the watercolor pencils, I just scribble around, add some extra detail in there. There's lots of texture in the center of a watercolor flower, or a sunflower. There's lots of texture in the middle of them, so go crazy with your pencil if you want. I'm also going to use this Posca pen. These are really fun to try. It's an acrylic paint pen. So you can use it to go over your petals. You can use it to make dots. You make dots a lot. So I'm going to make dots in the center of these flowers in a minute. I just decided to try it on the petals to see how I liked it on the dark spots. And I do actually like that hint of the veins in the darker areas as well. So you can try Posca pen as well. They come in different colors, but I typically use my white one and my black one the most often. I'm just gonna add dots to these darker areas of this middle of the sunflower. Dots are very relaxing. It's a meditative type of painting technique. If you really need to relax, just make a whole page of dots. It will relax you, I promise. And that looks about good. I don't think we need any more dots there. You wouldn't be able to see them anyway. One final thing I love to do on my paintings is to add some splatter. So I'm going to get one of the colors I used, the quinacridone burnt orange, and I'm going to load up my brush with some water and tap my finger. I love to add these. I think it adds some spontaneity and interest to the piece. I'm going to add some cad yellow medium as well, and maybe some yellow ochre to finish it off. Remember, this is the basic tutorial for the week. This is what you will see every week through the summer unless you join me in painting through the seasons. This course was built to dive deeper into watercolor to help you learn how to sketch your flowers, how to mix your colors, different watercolor techniques every week. And I wanted to do that so that if you like a step-by-step approach and if you want more instruction instead of just painting along with me, then you can, and you have that option. Right now, the course is discounted because I'm adding the flowers as we go. And so after summer's over, the price will jump up. So jump on that discounted price now, and I will see you in there.